It was the dawn of the third age of podcasting, 30 years after the series had launched.
The Babylon Podcast was a dream given form. Its goal, to discuss the place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully.
It's a port of call, home away from home for established fans, newbies, John, Blaine, and guests.
Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night.
It could be a dangerous place.
Wait, what?
But it's our last, best hope for peace.
This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast is
Babylon 5, 30 years later.
Hello and welcome to a brand new season of Babylon 5, 30 years later. My name is John Wilson, and with me is my friend and cohort on this endeavor, Blaine Dowler. Hello, Blaine.
Hello, John. How are you?
I am well. This podcast has been my one chance to learn and understand all about Babylon 5, and it failed. And that's where we go into a big old montage of podcast space battles. Because we have a new season with a new intro, and it is very dramatic.
It is. This is the season that JMS says was the one where they were least constrained in terms of storytelling. Because season 1, they were trying to prove their worth. Season 2, they were trying to prove that they could work with a new lead. And then we will talk about the constraints that come into play in seasons 4 and 5 when we get to them.
I know a little bit about how the production of the show went with seasons 4 and 5 that would lend itself to that. So I can see how season 3 would be the most free in the storytelling. That's kind of interesting to hear, though. So in a way, season 3 is the most Babylon 5 of Babylon 5.
In a few ways, yeah.
Okay. Good to know as we're going into this. This is, of course, our episode covering the first episode of season 3, Matters of Honor, which, of course, aired exactly 1 week after the previous episode because
5 days.
P10. 5 days. Yes, we shortened the week because we changed the broadcast date. So this first aired on the 6th of November, 1995, which is why you're seeing it on your feed on the 6th of November, 2025, if all goes according to plan. So yeah, this is exciting. Before we get into the episode, should we talk about the new opening a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
So we've had the first season presents Babylon 5 as the last best hope for peace, the place where all the different planets can come together and discuss their differences, and it's a melting pot of cultures. The second season adds a little bit of tension, not a whole lot, more of like the promises of bad things to come with the statement that this is the year that the Great War fell upon us all. But other than that one clause, it's pretty much presenting the same idea. Babylon 5, last best hope for peace. Everybody's coming together to discuss their differences. But since the end of season 2 did what it did, Commander Ivanova comes on with the intro to season 3 and says it was our last best hope for peace, and it failed. And war has broken out, and now Babylon 5 is our last best hope for victory, which puts a very different light on what the people, our protagonists, are going to be striving toward in this show. Because they're no longer trying to get peace, they're now trying to get a war won that, I don't know, I've been talking in the synopsis, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a big part. And I'm trying to remember my original reaction to the new opening, because watching it now, knowing the big picture, it's a different experience.
Right.
It's like, for example, I find anything that has a twist ending, you can experience it 3 ways. Right? Ideally, if it's done well, you can watch it once and be shocked by the twist. You can watch it a second time, and on that second viewing, you're often focusing on, was that twist effectively foreshadowed? What hints were there? And then the third viewing on, if it's done well, you're just enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it, because now you know essentially how the magic trick was done. You know how they put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
So now, while it's my second time actually viewing, because I read the script books as they were coming out, and now I am reading the script books in advance again. I'm on that third one, so I kind of see the overarching structure, even though I haven't viewed all the performances again, knowing what's coming. Because in terms of actually watching them for the second time, I'm doing that for the podcast. So yeah, it is a definite shift where they're going, as Sheridan has recently said, he's tired of reacting and it's time to get proactive.
Right.
And that's a big part of this season. And
well, one of the things I was thinking about with the whole last best hope for victory thing was that we are engaged in a war contrary to the wishes of the government. I mean, the story has not had a chance to really deal with that aspect of things yet where we are. I can only assume that it's coming because it seems like those dominoes have been set up and lined up and, arranged in a figure eight. But Earth government, Earth Force is on the side of the Centauri, and the Centauri are the aggressors. And our Babylon 5 protagonists are on the side of, I'm going to use the term humanity in the sense of not the race humanity, but the goals of, treating people well, humaneness. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to be in line with the Centauri aggression and the goals of EarthGov. So I predict that Babylon 5 is going to end up standing against her masters, so to speak. We'll see how that goes, but that's just kind of my prediction. That's what I'm interpreting victory to mean. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's the show has taken a turn.
It has, and there's also a production change that we have mentioned before, but just in more details. When the season was approaching, Straczynski realized that things had shifted. So Larry DiTillio had been on as story editor, and in the first season, DiTillio was doing the rewrites of the scripts that had come in, if they didn't quite line up. Season 2, JMS had actually done the rewrites. And coming into Season 3, Straczynski realized that the ongoing storyline had become so complex and convoluted, he didn't have a clear picture of where one episode would start and end in all cases. And he found it wouldn't be fair to hire in a freelancer, as he'd always intended to do, only to have their work rewritten stem to stern. So it really wasn't theirs anyway. So he was going to go to Warner's and say, I think I need to write everything this season. As a side effect, there was nothing left for DiTillio to do, because he's good at the story editing and the rewriting and the world building, all of which was now done. The overwhelming majority of which was now done, and the rest would have been, what JMS already had in his head. So DiTillio was let go to pursue other opportunities, with some pretty stellar references saying these are his strengths, and there's plenty of work out there feeding these strengths. And so when Straczynski went to Warner saying he was going to say, I think I need to write them all, Warner's reaction was, we are glad to hear that because we're going to ask you to do that anyway. What he didn't realize at the time is that had never been done for a 22-episode series because of the workload.
It is I can only imagine it's a lot of work. I mean, fully writing 22 episodes of a TV show, hour-long, 45-minute drama, weekly, ostensibly, with, of course, broadcast breaks. But that's a huge undertaking. It randomly reminds me of when Alexander Hamilton set out to write his defenses of the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. He intended to evenly distribute the work between himself and 2 other people, and he ended up writing 90% of them himself. It's a lot. So I guess why is JMS writing like he's running out of time?
Yeah. So JMS, when he was writing this season, he was typically getting between 3 and 4 hours of sleep a night. And that will actually last until the series ends.
Because he's writing everything except for the one Neil Gaiman script.
Yeah. And if anything, that early Season 5, he was getting less than that for reasons that we will get into when we get to Season 5.
Teasers.
Yeah.
So we're coming into season 3. Straczynski has taken on the vast majority of the creative workload, at least from the words on paper perspective himself. Production constraints are at a series low, and we're coming into matters of honor. So shall we get into it, or is there other thoughts you had to share in the preliminary?
Well, unless we want to just hit the director's cast now. This director is Kevin G. Kremen, who's directing his third of 5 episodes of Babylon 5, although he was one of the production managers for the first 2 seasons. So we've seen a lot of his work. We've got Tucker Smallwood.
We usually do a cast after the synopsis.
That's true, yes. So we'll park that. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I was just trying to find that director's name on the IMDb page to see what are the other episodes he had done. You said this was his second, you said?
This is his third. So in season 2, he did Spider in the Web and Confessions and Lamentations.
Okay.
And then we will see him direct 2 more episodes of Babylon 5 in season 3.
All right. So this episode has a lot of plot, a lot of things happening. So I need to keep it all straight in my head. We open with a backdrop of the elevator that was exploded at the end of season 2 in the last episode, whenever Sheridan was coming to the meeting to do his apology, and then they tried to blow him up. So there are repairs on that. So that's being repaired. Nice little backdrop there. Sheridan has a conversation with Kosh about thanking him for what he did to save him. And Kosh is very obscure and vague about anything that Sheridan asks him, as far as like, how do we know this is really you in there? Because you've been going to the station a lot, going to and from the station a lot. The nature of Vorlons and everything else. And you can see that Sheridan is getting frustrated and trying to be good natured. And yet Kosh is just like, good. I'm glad this isn't helping you very much. We see that Mollari has a meeting with Morden, saying basically that he is done with the Shadows, that the Centauri are going to go their own way, and he would like to part ways amicably. And Morden's like, okay, now that we've done everything you asked, you want us to just disappear? Mollari's like, yeah, can you do that? He's like, okay. And that kind of sort of is a good chance to just sort of talk about that plot line. He says there's a little bookkeeping we need to discuss first, and then meet again later, where the bookkeeping is, he lays out a map of the galaxy. And he's like, okay, this slice of the galaxy is for the Centauri. This other, mostly half of the galaxy, is for us, me and my associates. And with the one exception of this planet down here that's on your border, but we have a vested interest. And so Morden says that he has asked Rifa, that's his name, right? Rifa or Kifa? Rifa, to capture it for them. And that kind of captures Mollari off guard. He's like, Rifa? He's like, yeah, you said you didn't want anything else to do with us. So I went ahead and took the liberty of talking to him, and he was very open to our request. So, that's fine. Because of other events I'll talk about in a minute, Mollari at their next meeting asks Morden what their ships look like. And Morden says, we'll talk about that some other time. And basically Mollari no longer has Morden as like a business partner, a business arrangement partner, which we'll talk about portents of that later. There is a ranger coming to the station. He and his fellows are being attacked by the Drazi, and he gets free and comes to Babylon 5. His ship is not doing well, and so he puts all energy into the engines to get to the station quickly, even at the risk of his own life support giving out. He makes it to the station, is taken to sick bay. Dr. Franklin examines him and finds that he is, on the verge of death. He's completely weak, exposure, all these things. There's absolutely no way he's going anywhere, which is why it's kind of surprising whenever he turns around and sees the bed empty. So this ranger is on the station. He comes to see of course, Delenn and Captain Sheridan, because they're the ones who are in charge of the Rangers. Sheridan brings in Ivanova on the whole Ranger thing and is absolutely appalled and surprised to find that Ivanova already knows everything about the Rangers. And Ivanova makes the point that if there's something going on at this station I don't know about, then you can be surprised. You can come. She makes it her business to know absolutely everything going on the station. And they talk about the fact that the Rangers need assistance, and the Rangers have the resources to fight off the Drazi. They just don't have, they just need help doing it. So Sheridan agrees to take, some people, the Minbar ambassadors for one, and to go help them. But on the side, while all this is happening, a VIP has come to the station. One, looking up his name real quick, Ndawi. David Ndawi has come to the station on behalf of Earth's security concerns, and he has a little video file that as soon as they saw what it was, they pulled it from the internet. But he wants to know what people on the station know about it, and it is, of course, the video file that was sent from Kefir's ship, his little fighter pilot ship, that shows visuals of the Shadow ship. The black spider, nightmare spider in space. And the one that we were kind of worried about at the end of season 2, because the Shadows don't want anyone to know that they exist. And we don't want the Shadows to know that we know that they exist, because if they find out that they are known, they're going to get much more aggressive in their endeavors. So Ndawi has come to the station to find out who knows what about this video. And all of our protagonists are like, nope, never seen that before. Delenn lies right to his face. I have never seen this ship before. I have no idea what it is. Sheridan's like, nope, I've never seen it. And so Ndawi starts questioning all the ambassadors. He goes to Mollari, and Mollari's like, well, I've never seen that ship except in a dream. Ndawi's like, a dream? And at one point in his life, Londo Mollari had a dream of this ship, lots of them, flying over Centauri homeworld, and the dream has stuck with him. And this conversation is why he later asks Morden what their ships look like, because he now has cause to think about the fact that maybe he had a prophetic dream of the Shadows in large numbers flying over the skies of the Centauri homeworld, a concept which does not exactly put Mollari at his ease. So Ndawi then is talking to Garibaldi about the fact that he's not finding any answers, and Garibaldi suggests that he talk to G'Kar. Well, Ndawi is not supposed to have any official conversations with G'Kar because G'Kar is no longer the ambassador, and he's a persona non grata from the Centauri, and since we're friends with the Centauri. And Garibaldi's like, well, you know what? I can give you guarantees that the chief of station security will not report an unofficial conversation with Ambassador G'Kar. There's a rather humorous back and forth about all that. So Ndawi does go to G'Kar, and G'Kar says, finally, someone's asking about this ship and this threat. And he pulls out the Book of G'Quan, which is hand copied by scribes. So every single copy of the Book of G'Quan is not a printed by machine book. It is a handwritten, hand-drawn book. And there are 1,000-year-old records in the Book of G'Quan of these ships. And at some point, this they came to the Narn homeworld. It was not a pleasant encounter. They disappeared, and they've been gone for 1,000 years. And now they're back. And G'Kar has known that they were back, and no one has been able to listen to him. So he's hoping that Ndawi will take his warnings to heart. To wrap up the Ndawi subplot, Ndawi does eventually just go home and talk to the Senate about, a senator, about what he found and how there's really no one on the station who knows anything except for, 1,000-year-old stories from the Narns. Whenever he leaves the office, Morden enters the senator's office, an Earth senator on Earth is talking to Morden, and assurances are given back and forth that no one knows about the Shadow's existence. They're safe. So to go back to the Babylon 5 subplot with the Rangers, they Sheridan goes with everyone to address the concerns of the Rangers, and they are taken to a very large and beautiful Minbari ship that is faster than anything else its size, and also able to open a jump point on its own rather than needing a jump gate to, go faster than light. And so they go to take care of the concerns. They run across a shadow ship, and the shadow ship starts attacking, but not super diligently, because they don't recognize the ship as a Minbari ship. They don't know who it is, and they want to find out before they just destroy them out of hand. So Captain Sheridan decides to run, and since they don't have the firepower to destroy a shadow ship, they have to get kind of creative. And what they do is they go through a jump gate into hyperspace. They use a jump gate to hide the fact that they can make jump points, so the enemy doesn't know about that. And they come out of a jump gate near the homeworld of are they called the Mardab? Is that right?
Markhab, yep.
Markhab. They come out near the Markhab homeworld. The Markhab were the species that went extinct because of the plague last season, and their planet has been getting raided by, pirates and stuff. So he figures what he's going to do is he's going to open a jump point within the jump gate as they're exiting. That's going to cause an explosion. They're going to hightail it as fast as they can away from the explosion, because this ship is supposed to be super fast, and catch the Shadow ship in the explosion. It will not only take care of the Shadow ship, it will also prevent anyone from easily reaching the Markhab homeworld, because there won't be a jump gate there, and they'll stop grave robbing. Success. Hurrah. And that basically wraps up everything that I can think of from watching the episode. Did I miss any major points?
Nothing really springs to mind. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening, but I think you got it.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a fact about that last meeting with the senator that I want to come back to in the discussion. But I do have a question. I lost track of the Rangers needing freedom from the Drazi plotline. Did that get resolved, or did they stop talking about it?
Oh, no. They didn't need freedom from the Drazi. The problem is that the Centauri had set up a blockade around that Drazi world as they were expanding their territory. And they were trying to figure out why it was that world, and all they could think of was the presence of the Rangers. So when Sheridan and his crew went to punch a hole in that Centauri blockade so the Rangers could get out, that's where the Shadow ship was waiting for them. So we knew it was Zagras 7 from when Marcus was giving our crew the briefing, and then when Londo and Morden meet, and Morden says, okay, we have a vested interest in this one world, don't have your Centauri there when my associates come for Zagras 7. So remember,
okay. I missed it. Those were the same planet.
Yeah, that was the same planet. So not only is Mollari not clear on what these ships look like, he doesn't know them as the Shadows. He just knows them as Morden's associates. So it's only the people on the White Star and Garibaldi at the beginning who've heard the Shadows. Oh, and I say at the beginning, that reminds me there is another piece that's worth mentioning in the synopsis, that the episode ends with the formation of a war council.
Oh, that's right. Yes, because since Ivanova had not... Well, since Sheridan had thought Ivanova was not aware of the Rangers, and other important people on the station might not be aware of the Rangers, he wanted to have a place where everybody knew exactly what was going on. This includes Dr. Franklin and basically all of our key players. And they're going to have regular biweekly meetings where all information is made available to all parties, and no conversation points are off the table. So they can hammer out whatever it is that's concerning everything at any point in time.
It's also worth pointing out, here we do get on-screen confirmation that Kefir is dead. They say that this cost him his life. From a production standpoint, that's where the regular salary for the recurring cast member was freed up to bring Marcus in. So we see Marcus as a Ranger in this one. He is in the opening credits, so he's going to be one of our recurring characters.
Speaking of which, one of the things I want to say about the new opening is I really like the bold photos of all the characters, or footage, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's a still photo or just them standing still getting filmed. But I really liked the way that looked on the screen with the, something about it just struck me as solid.
Yeah, it is a good opening montage for this season.
I don't think that Mollari has had his last dealings with Morden, and I don't think his future dealings with Morden are going to be nearly so nice.
Yeah. I can't respond effectively because my responses would not be speculation. So,
well, that's kind of the whole show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he said he wanted to part ways with Morden because his people no longer needed the Associates' help. And so what Morden does is goes to Rifa and seemingly starting up a very similar arrangement that he had with Mollari. However, Mollari rose to power because of what the Shadows were doing for him. Now that he no longer has that, I'm suspecting there may be a shift. And I think, I don't want to put too many, things out there, but I think that Mollari's inner heart of humanity is going to come to play a bit more, since he's not going to be a driving force with the Centauri as much. I don't know. Making lots of predictions. There's a lot of things that happen in this episode that made me think about where the story could go.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about Babylon 5. It's every episode you start predicting where the future is going to come because it is so serialized. Mm-hmm. And so tightly serialized and clearly planned because of the foreshadowing that works. So especially on second viewing, there's people I know online who are claiming, oh no, they say it's planned, but they're really just making it up as they go along because that's how TV works. And then as we're going through it the second time through, I just find that a less and less tenable position. That on top of the fact that I have now read thousands of pages of what JMS was saying online. And if you think about it in terms of, the oath you would take as a witness in court, where you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So far as I can tell, JMS always tells the truth and nothing but the truth. The whole truth he usually tells. The only two exceptions I have seen to that are where the whole truth either spoils upcoming story elements, like why he was explaining to people who looked at the casting of The Gathering, asking why Delenn was cast with a female actor. Because at the time, when they were doing The Gathering, Delenn was supposed to be male or androgynous for that entire first season. So again, revealing that would spoil the story, and the other time he hasn't told the whole truth is when it's not his truth to tell, with things like the real reasons Michael O'Hare left. Just keeping that promise about mental health. So, when JMS has said, no, this was planned, and seeing what's there, and when he's got the documents and laying it all out, and you see changes from the plans that were forced upon them by O'Hare's departure, and as we'll see coming up, there's issues where plans kind of shift a little bit for reasons that we'll have to talk about when it comes, especially early season 5. But yeah, this was planned, and that encourages fans to speculate on what's coming.
Well, you have 3 very strong examples of serialized TV productions that got to have an ending and that were said from the beginning to have a plan. And the 3 I'm thinking of are Babylon 5, Lost, and Battlestar Galactica. And I think each of those shows a very different flavor of the way something like this can end up being true. Because all 3 of them come out of the gate saying, we know what our story is, we know where this is going. Babylon 5, to all appearances, pretty much did its show with a few minor changes along the way, because like you said, cast changes and such, having to make course corrections with that. But those entailed redistributing plot threads among other characters. The plot threads were still there. The story beats still needed to happen. The ending was still on target. It's just a little bit of how they got there changed. Then you have Battlestar Galactica, which started out with a plan. And as they went along, he felt comfortable fluidly changing the plan as creativity and fan response shifted along the way. But it's not that he was trying to beguile anyone. It was not a finished product in his head, or the finished product that we got and the finished product in his head at the start were not necessarily the same thing. Then we have Lost, where we were told, or at least led to believe, that the amount of creation that had been done for the show as far as what's actually going on and everything, and the reality were completely different. The reality of what all had been planned behind that show was minuscule compared to what actually had, compared to what they led us to believe had been planned. And they made a lot up as they went along. I'm sure they had a few ideas, but how many of those actually came out on screen and everything else? I haven't looked at all the details of everything to know about that, but that show was constantly under new creative direction with every season. So I feel like with a show like Babylon 5, which is of course the earliest of the three by far, and also a show like Babylon 5, which was, I think, possibly the first serialized TV show to have a beginning, middle, and an end. I think it's probably the goal and the model by which these kinds of things should be judged, rather than I don't know. I feel like if I was a fan in 1994 or 5 watching this, and people were saying he doesn't really know where it's going, we don't have any other previous shows that had done this to know that somebody could know where it was going. But obviously he did.
Yeah, I think the only other show I might add to the list is The X-Files, but it sounds a little different because Chris Carter never claimed to have the whole thing planned out. What he was promising was that he knew what the big conspiracy was in its detail. So he knew the destination, but was very open to creativity in terms of the red herrings and the twists and turns and how we see that picture. So when he sat down to start writing the series, he knew what the big picture would be in our series finale, but he didn't even know which season that would be in, nor did he know which pieces we'd learn in season 3 and which pieces we'd learn in season 5.
Which is a whole different approach, because that's more of a he has the world and the lore behind it in his head, but the story he's going to tell about that's up for 26 episodes a season creativity.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, that's, if it was a road trip, he knew he was going from New York to LA, but he didn't know if he was going to be getting there through Montana or Texas.
Mm-hmm.
He had those options, and he threw in red herrings that were never part of the big plan because that was an interesting idea, and he would just also plan when he find out that the agents were lied to, and that was never true. So, yeah. So when he compared it, people were comparing it to the roadmap on the alt.tv.xfiles news group that I was active in. I don't remember if the roadmap idea was mine first or not. I know it was part of the conversation when it came out. And then the running joke from there was that, yes, Chris Carter has that roadmap for the whole series laid out, but just sometimes he folds it wrong.
I do want to clarify for Lost fans out there, I love Lost. I think it's a fantastic television product. I just think we have to be honest with ourselves about what we actually got versus what we were led to believe was happening behind the creative closed doors. I think those are, that's a conversation.
Yeah, I do want to get back into Lost. I've seen all of season 1 and the first 4 of season 2. I was enjoying it, but I was watching it with others who were not enjoying season 2 as much, so that's why it kind of fell by the wayside. But yeah, Lost being serialized, like the X-Files could get away with a little more of the zigzag in the middle going to the finale, because in a 22 episode season, there would typically only be 6 episodes that were really driving the mythology, and the rest were episodic standalone Monster of the Week stuff. Whereas with Lost, having every single episode in one order and one order only in the heavily serialized format, where there is really only one way to sort out those episodes and have the story make sense, that implies a level of planning beyond what was there. It's more like, that 24 level where the fans expect, at least on a season by season basis, you're mapping the whole thing out.
And I think on a season by season basis, they probably did. But anyways, so going back to the episode, okay, we get the new ship which I'm not going to have a conversation about the Defiant, even though this feels very much like the Defiant, but that's okay. The ship is beautiful. It's a very flowy, elegant design. I think it looks really great on the screen. I think the idea of blending a Minbari crew with the humans on the station is pretty neat. Although I feel like having the Minbari crew unable to speak English and Lanier just shouting nonsense syllables at them every time Sheridan wants something done might get a little bit old and feel a little bit artificial. So I don't know if that's just going to be the way things are for a while or if that's going to change. I don't know. It just feels odd. But I like that the ship has a superpower that no one knows about. The one thing I didn't like about it is when Sheridan said that he's going to keep the jump point ability secret from their enemy, Ivanova had to ask why. And I think Ivanova would have known exactly why, would have been able to intuit it. I also think that just the one line Sheridan gave about wanting to keep it secret from their enemy was plenty, and they did not need to have a second conversation about it.
Yeah, I would agree that having the career military officer ask about that when the rest of the bridge crew are explicitly religious caste, they've said that.
Mm-hmm.
That question could have been coming from the Minbari, and it could have been answered just as well. And that question could have just, maybe it was a little bit of a delay because in that first moment when he brought it up, they wanted to keep things tight. And I think there was a commercial break in between the original broadcast. And then the second time, instead of having Sheridan bring it up, have one of the Minbar ask Lanier, and then Lanier asks that. But then again, does that really work in Minbar culture? Because that seems like you're questioning your orders, which is not really a Minbar thing to do.
Right.
So, that part was a little awkward. To me, that didn't bug me quite so much as Sheridan saying, what else can this ship do? And Delenn saying, all in good time. To me, it's maybe not an all in good time, but maybe once we've dealt with the shadows, then we'll sit down and go through it all.
Yeah. There's a 400-page manual. We don't have time to read it right now.
Yeah. But and I will have the Defiant conversation. So, yes, the White Star was in the pitch when JMS made it to Paramount executives. As I've said before, as far as I can tell, none of the credited writers on Deep Space Nine had access to that pitch, but I am convinced they were getting notes from people who had. The Defiant was an independent idea. Ira Steven Behr was not one of the people in the pitch meeting. He did not have direct access to anything about the Babylon 5 pitch, and he had to fight to get the Defiant on Deep Space Nine because he needed it for story purposes. But the Paramount execs were, this isn't the spaceship show, this is the space station show. And Behr was going, it makes no sense not to have something more powerful than the runabout when we're going to war. So it's something he had to fight tooth and nail for. So that one, I would say, is coincidental. It's just both, you're fighting a war against a much more powerful and older enemy. Well, we're going to need a top-of-the-line vessel here. So that one I do believe was coincidence.
And it's funny that the executives would have a hard time reconciling the purpose of the spaceship. Because if you say, this is the space station show, not the spaceship show, that implies that you're thinking the Defiant will go off and do Enterprise things or Voyager things, exploring strange new worlds. And that is so very obviously not the purpose of the ship. So it seems odd to me that would be a confusion. But then one thing I've started to realize over the years is that the people behind the suits who are behind the creative productions that we love often have almost no concept of the creative side of things. They're talking about money and they're talking about sales. They're talking about what will make people buy the product and the stories and things that make us happy about those products don't even occur to some of those business office suits.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the actual pushback from Paramount on the Defiant was, you mean we need to build more standing sets and more ship models? We can't just, have other ships with models that exist come in for those episodes?
Mm-hmm.
And Ira Stephen Beer won that argument saying, well, how many extras do you want in every single one of those episodes where we're going to need that ship? Because if it's on someone else's ship, it's going to have its own command crew. We're going to be introducing new captains, and that means more players on the page.
Right.
So you're increasing the budget either way. Right? Let's do it where we don't have to make 17,000 casting decisions at the same time. But again, this is not the Deep Space Nine podcast. This is the Babylon 5 podcast.
I did really like basically everything with the White Star. The way that the chase played out, all of that was really, really great. Indawi, let's talk about Indawi. So Indawi comes on the station and seems to be a well-intentioned dude. Like, if he weren't working for the people he's working for, I think we would like him. I think he would be sympathetic to a lot of the stuff going on at the station. I think if he were assigned to the station, he would have no trouble seeing eye to eye with and getting along with our protagonists. Nothing he says or does seems antagonistic. He just doesn't understand why Sheridan and Ivanova command staff had to leave the station for a while. Because I didn't mention it in the synopsis, but there's a thing where Sheridan and Ivanova are off doing the White Star Ranger Shadow plotline, and Indawi is kind of left holding his bag, going, "What happened to them? I was supposed to have, they were supposed to be my escorts through all of this. They're not here anymore." And that's when he talks to Garibaldi and has conversations with Shakar and stuff. But he gets the information and takes it home, and everything's totally fine. Everything seems totally chill. He leaves the room before Morden comes in, and that's when we find out that all the information he got from the station is being used for ulterior purposes. But I liked him. I liked having him on the station. We didn't talk about who was playing him. Indawi was being played by Tucker Smallwood, who I feel like I've seen him in things. He has a face that I recognize. He's in Contact, which I saw years and years ago. And he's in the Sarah Silverman program in Space Above and Beyond and 3 episodes of Seinfeld. So I've probably seen him in 1 or 2 of those Seinfeld episodes, but I don't immediately remember where I've seen him.
Yeah, there's a few places. He was in an episode of The X-Files. It was actually season 4, episode 2, I believe. It was Home. He's Sheriff Andy Taylor, who makes a comment about how he's tired of the Mayberry jokes. That's an episode not many people saw before DVD. It was popular on opening night, but it was so disturbing that Fox yanked it and they didn't do reruns. And some networks did not even put it in their syndication packages because it's really creepy, even by X-Files standards.
Is it in the digital seasons and season box sets and stuff?
Yep. Yeah, it's on the DVDs, so you can watch it unedited. But yeah, there. Trigger warning: before the opening credits roll, a baby is buried alive.
Okay, so that's all we're going to say about that. But yes, that's good to know. What's the name of that episode so people can know if they want to watch it or not?
That is Home.
Home in season 4 of X-Files. Okay.
Yes, that's season 4, episode 2. It is not part of the ongoing myth arc, so it is incredibly creepy, but you will have no problems following the ongoing narrative if you skip from the season 4 premiere, which I think is Gethsemane, onto season 4, episode 3.
Okay.
But yeah, from what I'm seeing, his only recurring role was that Space Above and Beyond, or that's his biggest recurring role.
Okay. Well, he's been in several things as minor roles, and so he's a face that I've seen. I just don't know from where definitively.
Yeah. Another recurring role, he did 9 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, but it would have been under enough heavy makeup that you might have known his voice rather than his face.
Right, I saw that, but didn't think I would know him there. The other guest stars, of course, Ed Wasser as Morden. We've seen him before. And there are brief appearances by Kitty Swink as a senator, Jonathan Chapman. No, I'm sorry. It was Morden. I was like, who is it that talks to the senator in the last scene? It's Morden. But Kitty Swink as a senator and Andrew Walker as a psychop in that same room. And what I wanted to say about that conversation is that when the senator presents to Morden that no one knows anything about the ship, and Morden's like, okay, then my associates will not have to speed up their plans, which is exactly what Delenn was concerned about. The psychop in the room, who is not named, says, well, actually, we might be able to use it. And basically presents the idea in truncated form. So I'm doing a little bit of extrapolation here of holding this idea of this ship as a potential threat to Earth's security to foment the xenophobia on Earth so that the government's basically plans for manipulating Earth population can get even more motivation behind them. Basically using the existence of the shadows as a tool to help Earth become something the shadows... I don't know. It's weird, but diabolically cool, if that makes sense. Like, I thought it was a really neat idea in an evil sort of way.
Yeah, all he says is, we could use this to accelerate the program back home, at which point Morton is going, interesting. So he's open to the conversation, and then they cut away. So we don't get details of what that program is, but yes, there is definitely stuff going on back home. And there is one other guest star I want to mention, that Jonathan Chapman. Here he's just the Drazi pilot, but he's got 15 appearances on Babylon 5 and 2 coming up in Crusade. He's one of those players that is kind of the alien of the week. So his 5 appearances in Season 2, he played an ambassador, Green Drazi number 2, non-pilot number 2, Minbari number 2, and a different Narn. And then he's the Drazi pilot here. He'll be a passing Minbari, a religious Minbari in his next 2 appearances. And then he shows up as a Prekiri for most of his future appearances. So just shout out, because he was one of those guys that was there and ready to come in, work under heavy makeup on a fairly regular basis.
I felt I recognized the Drazi, but I wasn't sure how much was the just the Drazi makeup versus the actual person in the Drazi makeup. We should probably also talk about Jason Carter, who joins the show with this episode as the Ranger Marcus. I don't recognize any of his known for stuff. I have not seen Demon Under Glass, nor The Hard Word from 1983, nor Dark Eye Cyber Hunt. And I'm scrolling through his IMDb. Did they do another Roots miniseries?
Yes, there was another Roots, in 2016.
I did not know that existed. I saw the first Roots miniseries in school, and I read the book. I never saw the sequel miniseries they made after the first one was so successful. I did not know there was a remake. Because the first miniseries does not cover the entire history that the book covers. The book goes from Africa all the way up to the author's own life in the present day. And the miniseries only goes up to the late 1800s. But anyways, be that as it may. He is in an episode of Lois and Clark that I have not seen yet in my Lois and Clark watching. But yeah, is there anything that you're familiar with him?
Yeah, going through it, some of the other ones that jump out are, to me, more of his video game voice acting credits are the ones that I would have seen. So he was in an episode of She Spies. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I'm not.
It's a season 2 episode, so I haven't seen it. I've only managed to see season 1 because it was a syndicated program and our local affiliate did not pick it up for season 2.
Gotcha.
It's Natasha Henstridge was heading 3. Think of it as an updated Charlie's Angels that doesn't take itself too seriously. Like their handler who gives them the instructions is like, come on, we've got 17 minutes left. And they're going, what do you mean 17 minutes? This event isn't happening for another hour. But when he says that, there's 17 minutes left in the one broadcast hour. So, fourth wall breaking and fun like that. I enjoyed it.
Gotcha. Sounds fun.
But yeah, so Jason Carter was also the voice of James Bond in the GoldenEye Rogue Agent game. And he was the voice of Glorfindel in a couple of Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2 video games. But yeah, nothing really jumps out. One other bizarre coincidence, not from Jason Carter, but Tucker Smallwood appeared in one episode of Jake and the Fat Man from season 5. It was a part 1 of 2. And Andy Walker, who plays the Psycop at the end, was also in one episode of Jake and the Fat Man. And it was the part 2 of 2.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
Tucker Smallwood is in Stormy Weather Part 1, and Andy Walker is in Stormy Weather Part 2 from Season 5 of Jake and the Fat Man.
Funny.
And I will always check the Jake and the Fat Man episodes because, as we will talk about in one of our upcoming specials, JMS worked on that show for 2 seasons, but not season 5, so he had no direct involvement in the episodes they were in. But yes, Jason Carter is here for a while.
And he has a good showing at the beginning. I feel like he kind of disappears halfway through, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of him because the Rangers have been, very nicely set up. And so whatever role they're going to play in the show, I'm ready for that to start happening. But I'm also trying to figure out if I have anything else to say about the episode itself. And if there were other things I was thinking of, I have forgotten what they were.
Okay. Yeah, one other thing I want to bring up. I was hesitant deciding whether I should bring this up or not. There was a post online that was made not too long ago at the time of this recording. Jason Carter had suffered some minor brain damage in an accident prior to working on Babylon 5. And there was kind of a hit piece about how his family life was destroyed by it and how all of a sudden, he just seemed to not care about his family and he left and did something else. I only bring it up because that seems to be better known than the response his children made, where they came forward and said, this is 95% crap. Whoever wrote this did not talk directly to anyone involved. They were getting third or fourth hand information all the way from friends of friends of friends and were putting in their own speculation and reinterpreting what was heard. So yes, he did have the brain injury. Yeah, the family did split up, but he didn't stop caring about his kids, and the brain injury did not cause the strain that was already on the marriage at the time of the injury. And so really, it's not nearly as bad as that is. So I'm bringing it up only to say that hit piece was an exaggeration. And if you've seen that, actively seek out the response from his actual children saying, here's the way we see it, because they see it quite differently.
Exaggeration to the point of inaccuracy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So yeah, if you've seen the one thing, don't trust it. All right. So going out of this episode, we have some interesting things going on at home. And yeah, I guess that probably leads us into our segment for the last best hope. This is kind of a weird one for me, but what was your pick?
Yeah, this is tough because some of it was pretty consistently good. I am torn between Sheridan's creativity in actually taking down the Shadow Vessel. So yes, they took him down and showed the power of the White Star, but also said, yes, this brand new powerful ship cannot take on a Shadow on its own. And the fact that, yes, Sheridan did defeat it, which reinforces that he is a very good tactician, but the way he defeated it is not something that you can expect to repeat. It's a one-off. So they don't have this magic weapon that they can pull out anytime they encounter a Shadow and beat them again and again and again. So I'm torn between that and Garibaldi's conversation about not even telling himself things he shouldn't know. What kind of security chief would he be if he did that?
The conversation with Garibaldi and Indawi was genius. It was brilliantly written, and the actor who does Garibaldi brought it fantastically. I feel like we have not had a whole lot of really strong Garibaldi moments of late, and that was a good one. So those are your two?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the defeat of the Shadow, because it just sets up the magnitude of the threat so much more effectively for the future.
Good. So I feel like this episode does a lot for a particular character with very few brushstrokes. And I'm probably reading a lot into the negative space, which is why I'm choosing this, but I'm going to go with Londo Mollari. I think that this episode starts a very important change of direction for the character. And I could be wrong. Reminder, I've not seen any of these episodes until right before we record. So I don't know what's going to happen next week, much less next season. But the way it's presented in the context of little tidbits of Jurassic's performance we've gotten along the way, showing that Londo still does have a heart through all this, that he's still a person underneath all of the politics and power mongering. I think things have started to shift for him in significant ways that Yeah, he's my last best hope in this episode, mainly because of what I am anticipating based on what happened in this episode. And I'm excited about it to see if I'm right, and if I'm not, how it actually is going to play out and what's going to happen.
Okay. So that seems like a good way to segue into our last segment.
So yes, here is the where we talk about the future. Yeah, as you said, a good way to segue in, because Mollari is all about my choice of Mollari is all about the future. We don't spoil on this show, or at least we do our best to avoid it. And yet, as a journey through the series, if things happen that might not be obvious as portentous for the future, we like to just stick a pin in them and just mention them here in our giving form to the dream segment. So what tidbits from this episode should we keep in mind for the future, Blaine?
I will say that you are right that Londo is on a new trajectory. I will not confirm whether or not it's the trajectory you're predicting, but there are things that happened here that put Londo, G'Kar, Sheridan, Ivanova, Delenn, Lennier, all on new trajectories. So there's going to be some shifts coming in the future that are beginning here. We have, obviously, that whole meeting, the fact that the senators are talking to Morden and are cooperating with his associates, or at least that one senator and the side cop. That is obviously not going to be forgotten, because this is not that kind of show.
Right.
And yes, we've got our first clear victory against the Shadows, and we have Kosh with his "I have always been here," and being vague about whether or not he's a different Vorlon than we saw before.
Yeah, so just to clarify that point, Sheridan asks him, you've been back and forth to your planet any number of times since you got here. How do I know that you're the same Vorlon inside that suit? We can't see you. And his response says, I have always been here. And Sheridan says, well, you said the same thing about me. He's like, yep, sure did. So, yes, vague and mysterious.
Mm-hmm. And when Sheridan points out how frustrated that makes him, Kosh's response is, good.
Good.
Yeah, so those are the ones. I mean, this is just one of those episodes. Season premieres and season finales, you could just bank on everything mattering. Mm-hmm. It's just the season premieres, they're often a little more subtle.
Right, because there's setting up things you don't know what's going to happen instead of paying off things you've seen building.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be when you're watching the series the second time going, oh, that's what that was about.
Which will be happening soon, because I'm going to be very curious to see what I said about these episodes now that I'm 2 seasons in. And as we're recording this, our first episode has not yet gone live, but it will be soon. So, yes, going back and rewatching this with all this in mind will be interesting.
Yeah, so far we've only released the trailer, and I might say I'm happy with the response for a trailer, just the promo that came out on January 1st. And now if people want to respond in other ways.
So we have feedback episodes for the show where we respond to things that you, the listeners, have said to us. And there are a variety of vehicles, venues, and methods for sending in feedback. Blaine, what's the first one?
So the first one is to send us email at Babylon5 30 years later using either letters or numerals. All of those will be captured and will be read in these feedback episodes unless you explicitly ask us not to.
You can also leave comments on either website where the show is hosted, the first of which is my website, johnreadscomics.com, and there is no H in comments.
You can also leave comments at bureau42.com, where all of my shows are posted.
You can go to your favorite podcatcher and leave a review if it allows you to do so. We check the reviews on Apple Podcasts as a matter of course. If you leave a review somewhere else and you would like us to know about it so we can read it and acknowledge you and thank you on the air, just let us know.
And then the last place is our YouTube channel. And we talked about how our host was going to be auto-posting to YouTube. It was doing that when we started recording. And now that we've actually gone live, I found out it no longer has that in the free version of our hosting plan. So we are shifting to Headliner. So we get 5 conversions or uploads to YouTube per month without a watermark, and it'll start adding the watermark after that. So please be patient. It means I'm going to have to do the manual playlisting for it. But yes, we will have our YouTube episodes there, and the playlists will have Season 1 content, Season 2 content, just the broadcast content. So if you want to omit coverage of the comics and novels, you may, although, as we have said, it was we discussed them a little bit afterwards. Those give us hints of what's coming that were unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
So they are more relevant than tie-in media for a lot of other media. Sometimes as prescient as that first Happy Days tie-in novel, where on page 4, Chuck Cunningham goes to the beach and then is never heard from again. This I recently learned through social media.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So, yes, you can leave comments on our YouTube channel. Any of these comments will be read on the air unless you ask us not to. If you spoil beyond episodes covered up to that point. So our next feedback episode just covers up to Season 3, Episode 4. If your comments discuss explicitly events that happen after that, then at least that portion of your feedback may be tabled until such a time as that's no longer a spoiler.
Alrighty. And if you do enjoy the novels, we do have the third novel coming up soon. The next broadcast break happens after episode 4 of Season 3, so 3 more weeks after this of weekly releases. We'll have a feedback episode during the break, and our third novel coverage of Blood Oath by John Vordholt will be in late January, right before we come back for the second segment of Season 3 episodes. So, all right. Well, next week we have Convictions. Before we go, one last question, Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
What were the matters of honor?
Yeah, some of that, we talked before about, if we point out the rope and the tree trunk and the snake, we might put together that there's an elephant. This is some of that. So the matters of honor, it's not explicit in here. It's one of the things where you can see what it's leading to. So don't see the matters of honor so much now as we roll down the road. Because to me, the matters of honor, it's a sense of personal honor that is driving some of these decisions.
Okay, that's where I was going with it too. It was more like a subtle reference to a lot of the subtext of the storyline rather than something specific that is dealt with. This is not a Klingon episode involving matters of honor, but a sense of honorability is definitely at play in some of the decisions characters are making.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next week, Convictions, and that'll be episode 2 of, like I said, 4 consecutive episodes before we go to the next broadcast break. All right. So anything else before we go?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening.
And good eating to you.